Hello, this is Captain Eric Thompson of the USS Hellblazer. I made that kind of joke a few times earlier this month, and just in case you don't know, Hellblazer, comic. Really no connection to Star Trek, but I've been reading a lot this last few months. I like it. Anyway, this is the final day of Star Trek month. So, I have to have a very special video, one that I sort of teased last video. And I came up with one. Face off isn't a suitable enough term to cover what I'm doing today. Today, I'm going to borrow a term that was used in the movie Demolition Man and call this a franchise war. Of course, if you read the title for this video, you know what I'm talking about. A franchise war of Star Trek and Star Wars. These two franchises are huge, deeply ingrained into pop culture everywhere. Now, no matter what I say or what ends up happening at the end of this video, just know that I love both of these franchises very much. Star Trek more recently, but I still have a lot of respect and love for both of these franchises, and I'll continue to watch stuff from both these franchises for a while. Of course, I probably haven't not going to check out Discovery anytime in the near future. Eventually, but not in the near future. Probably won't check out any of the new Star Wars TV shows. Point is, this is something that's been argued between both fandoms and a lot of other people for a long time. Now it's time for me to chime in. We have 5 rounds. Yeah, this is going to be a big one. Alright, round 1. Movies. Star Trek has a total of 13 films, 1 through 6 focusing on the OG crew and cast, movies 7 through 10 focusing on the Next Generation crew and cast, and 11 through 13 focusing on the original crew but played by different actors in an alternate timeline. They've all, each era of film for this franchise has had its ups and downs. Wrath of Khan, First Contact, Star Trek Beyond, and of course the lows, Final Frontier, Insurrection, and the last little bit of Into Darkness. Star Wars, at the time of recording this, has 10 films. The original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, episodes 7 and 8, and the 2 anthology films, Rogue One and Solo: A Star Wars Story. Solo has, at best, had a lukewarm critical response and a financial disappointment. Rogue One, personally, I don't think critically it's one of the best films, but it has made a lot of money commercially. Episode 7 very well received commercially and critically. Last Jedi, yeah, that was divisive. And the prequel trilogy, let's not get into that. But the one thing that this franchise has over Star Trek is the original trilogy. Each one of those original 3 films has reached a status of such epic proportions that it doesn't matter how many little flaws or mistakes you point out in A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, or even Return of the Jedi. People love those films like no other, and they've had such an impact that it's hard to really say that any of the other Star Trek films have had an equal impact. You could argue that Wrath of Khan is sort of on the same level as Return of the Jedi, but nothing on A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. So, this round goes to Star Wars. Round 2, TV shows. Okay, for TV shows, I honestly don't know a whole lot about Star Wars. There's a Clone Wars TV show. There's a TV show where it focuses on a group of rebels taking place between episodes 3 and 4. And I'm sure there are a couple other ones out there too. And while they definitely have their fans, no doubt about that, they just never really piqued my interest. They didn't really seem that essential to watch for a lot of people that weren't real hardcore Star Wars fans. Star Trek, on the other hand, the soul of Star Trek is in its TV shows. It was how it was first introduced in the 60s, the original show. And plus, we've had such other impactful shows such as The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. A few that aren't quite as important, but still can be fun to watch, Enterprise and Discovery, and they're still continuing to make TV shows. Like, I hear they have a animated show coming out. That could be a little divisive, but a new show focused on Jean-Luc Picard, count me in. When you have a franchise that starts off as a TV show and most of its strengths are in that format, again, it's quite clear that one franchise has an edge over the other. This round goes to Star Trek. But now, we get into the real hard rounds. Starting with round 3. Heroes. Shut up, Quachi. Fine. Quachi wanted to make an appearance. Because Chewbacca from Star Wars, he's pretty iconic, and he's very lovable, just like good old Quachi here. Yeah, I know. Alright, see you at the end of this video. Alright. Anyway, like I said, Chewbacca is a famous hero from Star Wars that has achieved a level of iconic status. We also have Han, Leia, Luke Skywalker, C-3PO and R2-D2, sure. BB-8, yeah. Newer heroes, Rey, Poe, Finn, and then you got some of the mentors like Obi-Wan and Yoda. Those are all great characters. On Star Trek, we have stacks on stacks on stacks of heroes. Spock, Bones, Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov, Kirk. That's just from the original show. There's a whole lot of other protagonists throughout this entire franchise. Now, each, of course, hero from each franchise has had its varying levels of reception and admiration. Han is the outlaw, badass, cool guy that sort of has a bad side to him. Luke is slightly whiny in his younger years, but he's the chosen one who learns the ways of the Jedi. And at the end, knows what the right thing to do is. On the other end, you got Kirk, who's, the captain has done some good things, but he's also kind of a brute and womanizer. Or is it alienizer? Anyway, you also have Spock, who comes through with solutions every time, but he's also, since he's Vulcan, a little too logical, not really all that emotional, a little bit hard to connect to. You see how I'm going with this? Each character, while great, certainly has their flaws. But I think there's one character from Star Trek that can beat all the other protagonists we have seen in Star Wars. And that is Jean-Luc Picard. Captain of the Enterprise of the Next Generation, he's not just a leader, he inspires his crew. He has his moments of doubt, he considers all possibilities. He goes through his own emotional crisis while making him human, but also more heroic in the end as well. But I think, generally speaking, this also points out the difference with how the heroes from each franchise are seen. Since Star Wars is more of a movie franchise, we get the highlights of all of our heroes, but it's sort of hard to also connect with them from time to time, and also they don't really get that much development. Rey has been criticized as being a Mary Sue. Leia, that sort of Mary Poppins bit in The Last Jedi was kind of like too hard to swallow. But with Star Trek, you learn about all the protagonists. You learn their strengths, their flaws, their experiences. You connect with them on a long-term basis. So yeah, it's a bit of a long haul, but if you stick with it, you really start to fall in love with the heroes. And that's a great strength for Star Trek. This round goes to Star Trek. Now let's move on to round 4, villains. There are a lot of antagonists in Star Trek, really too many to count. Well, let's try and narrow it down to just a couple. You've got Khan. Khan! Shut up, Bachi. I know that wasn't a good impression. Shut up. He serves as a great villain, someone who can strategically outmaneuver Kirk throughout most of a situation until the very end. And of course, you got other villains such as the Borg, a collective species that really has an intimidation value about them. And of course, there are several other minor villains spread out through movies and TV shows that have their really good strengths and really entertaining things about them. Star Wars. Yeah, I know there's Darth Maul. I know there's Kylo Ren. I know there's the Emperor Palpatine. But there's one villain that beats all of them. Darth Vader. He is the ultimate villain. At least in the context of this video. He is badass. He is powerful. Epic music plays whenever he steps into a hallway. This motherfucker. I mean, he had the single best scene in Rogue One, hands down. There's really nothing that can be said about Star Trek villains that can top Darth Vader. This round goes to Star Wars. Yeah, I know it's the final round. Alright, we've got the final round here. This round will look at the legacy / impact each franchise has had. Now, this is really hard to really observe. You can get down now. Because you've got toys, you've got comics, video games, and you've got people quoting lines like, "Beam me up, Scotty," or "May the Force be with you." This is a really difficult one to really determine. So I guess let's look at the fan base each franchise has produced. You've got people who dress up as Star Trek characters at every convention, so as well as Star Wars. People dress up as Vulcans, other characters, again with Star Wars. So, generally speaking, how can we determine the impact the franchises have by looking at what has happened in the real world? Well, Star Wars is going into this with a unfortunate stain on its reputation. As we all know, people really despise the prequel films. So much so that the actor who ended up playing Jar Jar Binks was bullied so much from fans online and on other platforms that he even thought about committing suicide. Yeah, that's not that great, but it's one incident. One incident should not determine how positive or negative a fan base is. So what else has the fan base been up to? They bullied the actress who played Rose from Last Jedi to the point where she got off of social media. At least on one platform. I'm not sure if she has still a Instagram account or not, but yeah, she's definitely off of things like Twitter and such. And also there's a large fan base that is trying to petition Disney to make Last Jedi non-canon, which will never happen. Yeah. the Star Wars fan base has some difficulties, for sure. And certainly, Star Trek fans not always satisfied with what their franchise has produced. But you don't hear anyone like bullying the actress who plays a character on Discovery to the point where she's shutting down all of her social media accounts. Okay, so maybe fan bases aren't the best way to look at this. How about just what we see in like the outside of fan base in the real world? What do we see? A lot of Star Wars toys, people playing as Jedi and Sith with each other as children. That's all really fun. Star Trek also has a lot of loyal and really great people that love to talk about Star Trek. In fact, there are a couple pieces of technology on Star Trek shows that end up influencing real life technology such as cell phones and even iPads. Now, ultimately, I guess let's look at like what the heart of each franchise is about for this. Star Wars is basically a fantasy epic made to look like science fiction. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's a legendary story of good versus evil, with people struggling through inner conflict as well as outer conflict in constant battle of balance and peace. Now that's great and it's certainly become legendary, but let's admit it, it's not unique in that sense. Star Trek is about helping humanity move forward to make progressive advancements, to realize that humanity is not bad. That if we learn how to cooperate with each other, we can learn so much from each other. And again, to a certain extent, it's not unique in that sense either for Star Trek. But what makes Star Trek unique in this sense is that it goes so deep into exploring cooperation, peace, treaties with all sorts of different species and such, that there's a lot of things that we can learn from Star Trek that we can apply to the real world. Star Wars will inspire people and will have people fall in love with it, and that's good. But Star Trek inspires more. So yeah, I guess if you haven't figured it out already, I'm giving this round and the franchise war to Star Trek. In my opinion, Star Trek is better than Star Wars. Now, I usually don't get a lot of viewers on this channel, but in case I get a lot of hate in the comments, let me remind you, I love both of these franchises and I will continue to love both of them in the future. I just happen to have a preference over another, and I believe there are a lot of things Star Trek does better than Star Wars, generally speaking. But that's all I have for right now. I'm actually working on a bonus Star Trek episode that I'll be doing tomorrow, but for Star Trek month, this is generally it. So, comment down below, like, subscribe, share. Yeah, Quachi wanted to make one more appearance before I say, see you guys next time.